Good morning, and welcome to the Media Speaks Live Saturday morning news show. I'm D-Lake for Prez. I'm joined this morning by Kyle Phillips, the technician on the mission, writer, producer, director, and star of Genesis. I'm also joined by Sam I.B. the Ganji.
Greetings, unsettled souls. Welcome to the Saturday edition.
Oh, what a great idea. Live show?
I'd be so surprised.
Oh my God!
Hey Aaron, how you doing? It sounds like you're getting a little bit of audio feedback.
The balloon?
Aaron, are you there? Looks like he's got to get his fancy helicopter-style headset.
I like it.
going.
I like it. Did you notice I have the Star Wars headset?
I did notice. I didn't say anything, but I did totally notice you were wearing Star Wars headphones, Sam.
And what's funny is they are like really, really good. There we go. Hello, Aaron.
Aaron Dykes on the show.
Wow, you guys have a live studio crew. That's cool.
We went ahead and I admit we've tried repeatedly to, at least I have tried repeatedly to find some other way to meet and hang out, but they actually have a really good setup here. It's just it comes with Google.
I did the setup right when I was tuning in, totally late for the show, so.
No, that's not a
guys.
problem at all.
It's an honor to have you. I invited you, and it is an honor to have you on. So what do you think the most pressing issue right now is? What's going on at Truthstream?
Well, right now, today, time has been the most oppressive issue because we got it all backwards, and maybe we just don't fit into time. I don't know. We can fight the New World Order, but not time.
Well, why don't you tell us about Truthstream Media, how you guys started, and really what you do over there to give our audience an idea of what's going on over at TruthstreamMedia.com.
Well, TruthstreamMedia.com really was just an outgrowth of Melissa, Melton, and I deciding to have a relationship and wanted to continue our work and focus on the things we thought were most important. And lately it's been our food, because waking up to genetically modified foods, first kind of hearing the ground buzz that, well, they're kind of bad, then looking into studies and hearing from experts like Jeffrey Smith, reading more and more about how obviously there's some serious health risks going on that are being deliberately ignored so they can get this in as a cheap food crop into all these foods, mixed into practically everything, getting the masses eating them. Then you realize everything else in those packaged foods, and half or more of everything in the grocery store, is filled with all kinds of chemicals, quite a few which have, questionable things about them, if not outright dangerous things. And then the more you look all around you, you're surrounded by this stuff. How did it get there? Who said this was okay? That's the kind of thing we've been focusing on lately.
Who is George Orwell's ghost? That's what I really want to know.
Well,
Go ahead.
That was like 17 questions.
Aaron, what I really want to know is who is George Orwell's ghost, Aaron Dykes? Tell me right now on
He's
this
all
show.
of us. He's all of us. It was always just
It's a
pen
compilation of people?
name. Yeah.
That was
Awesome.
an excellent article.
That's excellent.
Well, I do want to hear what you have to say about GMO labeling, though. I know you had on your
Very much.
you had
Me too.
Julio Ruscio, or however you say his name, on your show.
I think we messed it up too.
Yeah, it's impossible to say. I
think it's a French derivative, Rasso.
something.
Rasso.
That guy lives right by me, and me and him went to a GMO labeling Senate hearing in Chicago together, and I swear it was a few senators showed up, and they had a panel of people for GMO labeling and a panel of people against GMO labeling, and I don't even have to get into what they said. It's as simple as this. The people who are for GMO labeling, parents of children who are worried about it, people from volunteer organizations, volunteer activists, and then they go to the panel of people against labeling, a farmer, somebody who works for a seed company, and somebody who used to work for a seed company. And it's like, come on, who has a financial interest in this? And you could see that the senators and the people who are capable of making these laws do not care. What's your experience been with that? And anytime that they try and pass something.
We're gonna mute D-Lake.
I just saw Melissa.
That's a good
Sorry,
that's a good
I saw
question.
Melissa join the show.
Yeah, you know, she killed the buzz. She's the anti-buzz. There was like this
What?
weird staticky audio buzz in my headphones, and then
I'm gonna need like.
Are you guys in an airship? Those are some badass headsets you got there.
Are you? We are in an airship.
they are cool
It's
headsets.
the
Yeah,
only way to get out of the FEMA regions.
that's a JoJo's
I don't know what
recommendation.
that is.
No, literally, you killed the imbalance. It was like joining this made
Oh,
it all
good.
better.
There you. That's my contribution for the day.
You know, GMO labeling seems like common sense, but it's this whole weird game that you can know, you should know, but you can't know because it would confuse you to know. Is kind of what the industry's
Yes, it would
argument is.
confuse consumers. And also, Monsanto has said that they are going to sue any state that tries to label on the basis of it being unconstitutional in regard to the First Amendment. So apparently it's unconstitutional for you to be informed about what's in your food.
Well, and they do the same thing by not testing any of the seafood or downplaying. I know. Thank you, by the way, Melissa. I was our comment line the other day. People with not caring about the fact that 80% of the sardines in the Pacific Ocean are missing. There's a boneyard. They don't test anything caught out of the Pacific Ocean. To the best, have they ever begun doing that?
They're monitoring. They're not testing. They're
not even monitoring. Look,
They're
if
watching
they have to
from a
test
distance.
and monitor things, then they might have to be held accountable and tell you what's actually going on in your food.
Right. Hey, Melissa, Aaron, have you heard about the helicopter flying over Baltimore, like super low? It's going to be flying for years. And how do you feel about that?
I didn't hear about
I
that.
have
Is
not
that one
heard
of
about
those?
that.
They're
drills?
testing. This is unusual, Aaron. They're testing radiation in a helicopter flying at 150 feet above the ground instead of setting up our actual radiation monitoring system. Which, like they're trying to
If the
show
government could
Yeah.
find a way to make a noodle salad recipe take 15 extra steps, they'll do it. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, though. If I was going to test radiation, I'm sure Baltimore would be my first choice of city.
Well, you know, they did that in Austin. We just had the Formula One races start a year or so ago, and then they had the EPA flying their own fleet of planes over the city, and they were monitoring for pollution from the race, but also for terrorism. We'll just throw in a little terrorism monitoring, and I don't know what was on those planes, but
I think terrorism should always be monitored because, you guys, they're out for our freedom. That's really what it's all about. So.
I love how they can always throw those two words in. It seems like, and it's like they're shut up words. Like it used to be, like they could just say 9/11 and people would be quiet. That stopped working as much, and so it's pollution and terrorism.
Me, Kyle?
Pollution and terror. No, D-Lake. No. Pollution and terrorism. I am interrupting you, and I'm making this point.
No, I'm making this point that if you work for the NSA, the easiest thing to say, even Barack Obama just said it this past week. Look, Kyle.
You're polluting our show with terrorism, D-Lake.
No, you want to know why we need to... Aaron, Melissa, do you guys want to know why the NSA is the easiest job in the world? Because all I have to do is say 9/11. Do you guys want another 9/11? Do you want another 9/11? No.
Look,
so I
they have to get more money so they can run the NSA. Okay,
Melissa,
it's kind of like how the FBI is always involved in every terrorist setup.
I need to know your irises. I need to feel your boobs. If you want to go on vacation, Melissa, that's gonna happen.
Well, boobs are where they hide most of the bombs at the airport.
Yeah, when we go through,
that's awesome.
It's always in boobs.
Shoes, some underwear, of course.
Whenever we go,
or like your grandma's underwear. That's the other place.
Aaron,
always.
Yeah. Aaron,
I'm like, put this in your colostomy bag. Put it under your boobs.
Aaron
Keith Alexander.
Aaron Dykes, don't think your testicles are out of bounds.
Oh. We
Aaron,
had to go
what
there.
Have I told you
Don't
about
go there.
always hiding bombs in your testicles?
I'm gonna cup. I'm
Keith
gonna cup
Alexander,
your,
he
I'm
got
gonna cup
heckled
your
at that
junk.
speech.
No, hey, I'm from San Diego. Don't touch my junk. You guys remember that one?
That was what started the firestorm. Oddly enough, it really was.
I think that's a good pan slogan for the whole eugenics and all of it. Don't touch my junk. They used to say 96% or 98% of our DNA was junk. Just leave it alone. That's not junk.
The other thing is, and this alarms me.
Junk's not junk.
Do you think that with the backscatter machines, they just sort of vanished? But the millimeter, what are they called? Millimeter readers or whatever? Aren't they also radioactive to some degree?
don't you think it's distasteful for the company to name themselves Rapiscan? I mean, it's it's right there on the machine. It's unsettling.
Well, have you ever? What I think is really funny too is when
That's
the last time that I went to the airport and me and my girlfriend we opted out and we didn't want to go through their body scanners, and so they tell us, all right, wait right next to the machine for about 15 minutes while we get somebody to do your pat down. Which right then they're like, stand next to the machine, and I was like, no. And he's like, stand next to the machine. I was like, I'm not standing next to your machine. And he just kind of let it go after that. But then they do this, and tell me if anybody else has had this experience. While they're giving you the pat down, they're telling you how safe the machine is. That's the way that they operate their propaganda. The guy comes up, and he's like, it's totally safe, and it's a different machine now, and it doesn't save anything. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, find a new job, dude. I'd hate to see you die of cancer and go to hell because of all the people you've molested.
I mean, last time I went through the airport security here in Austin, Texas, I actually had a lady argue with me that it's not an X-ray. So it's just not at all. It's just like you go in the closet, basically.
Isn't it a DNA unzipper? The terahertz wave, whatever.
I mean,
there's
she
a lot
was
of
like, there's no.
There's a lot of wavelengths going on, and they don't have any business messing with any of them.
There's no radiation. What do you mean? I'm like, you work here.
This came up earlier. How do you get people? Can you get through to people whose eyes just gloss over when you tell them, hey, Fukushima is a really big deal, or the backscatter radiation, or whatever it is that you're trying to convey? How do you reach people that maybe are used to the fact, oh, that's Aaron and Melissa, they're always talking about this? How do you actually make people listen?
That's an important question. I think that's really profound because, the Bible talks about people who have eyes to see and ears to hear, and I don't know why some people are tuned out of that. Why can some people seemingly not be reached and just everything goes over their head? I don't know. Sometimes in school you get told a lesson and it seems boring. Maybe years, months, weeks later, something about the lesson might hit home, and like now it has a relevance to your life, and then you're interested in learning about it. We can hope that people just have to find what's relevant. And I guess it just has to hit home, right?
I mean, there are scientists that have done studies on the fact that society itself is actually diverging into two groups. And those two groups seem to be the crazy conspiracy theorists and then everybody else who's willing to zombie walk through their day.
Kind of like a Brave New World.
Yeah, that reminds me, Aldous Huxley was talking about, I think it was with brainwashing and advertisement and propaganda, but I guess it applies throughout society. He was talking about 20% of people cannot be hypnotized, or maybe it's 10%. The middle 60% can be easily hypnotized and convinced of almost anything, and the other 20 or 10%, whatever it adds up to, can be so easily hypnotized they can be talked into absolutely anything at any time. And those that can't be hypnotized, some of them are the most suggestive and thinking people, but some of them are just so independent and self-thinking that they can't be hypnotized. Somewhere in there's a spread. They think there's a spread of people and how much they can be manipulated.
Can you talk a little bit more about George C. McGee and this article by George Orwell's Ghost, this rare Bilderberg paper trail? And when I scroll down, I mean, I read the whole article, and then it's like, hey, click on the photos to enlarge or download. And they're just, here, look, I'm going to scroll down the page. Watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18,
It's like hundreds of documents.
20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Yeah, I'm still scrolling. I'm still scrolling. Who uncovered all this?
Do you think it'll be in Virginia?
I mean, I don't know where else I can find this. I mean, look, I could go to my Netflix account that I just purchased last weekend, and I'm in love with all these new shows, or I could spend my time researching. We're still scrolling.
Yeah, where did these documents come from?
It's like a clown car of Bilderberg documents.
I know. The clown car of Bilderberg documents a handkerchief. I'm still pulling it out. Look, I'm still scrolling.
Midgets are still coming out of the car.
I scroll pretty fast, too. I mean, look, it's still going.
Yeah, you're an expert scroller.
Here we go. We're still, okay. Bottom of the page. Aaron, that's where you met Sam. Sam, that's where you met Aaron. Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was cool. So we were there in Chantilly, Virginia. It's in the Washington, D.C. sphere, so all the Americans can come straight from where they work and live and rape and pillage the rest of the country from. And a lot of people came out to...
You got the laugh.
It's a really kind audience. You know, there was a bunch of activists came and protested against what was going on and showed a presence to let people know that we're aware of what Bilderberg is up to, and we know how to read a membership list and see that this is a pretty important gathering of people, and it should be reported on, obviously.
Whose idea was that? Yours?
I was also bothered by the fact that when we were at Bilderberg, there was a sense of like a real force. Everybody seemed on fire, and then the moment I get back, I'm putting together the movie, and while I'm putting it together, Rand Paul endorses Romney. It just everything was related. Everything just went. It felt like they deliberately pulled the plug on everything that felt like it was trying to build from that. Did you get that vibe at all? Or do you think they were related?
I think it was related. It seemed to come as a political deal out of there. I don't know that Rand Paul was there or anything. It was rumored that Romney was. Certainly a lot of his handlers were. And politics is a nasty, dirty business. And we really probably shouldn't be spending so much time endorsing candidates and even following all that. We at some point in the game, we have to just take power back from Washington. It's always a new crisis and a new thing. Let's give them more power. They just need a little more power because they got more business to take care of.
Aaron, how do you feel about a Jesse Ventura, Howard Stern ticket?
Does
that appeal to you in any way, or how do you feel about it? And
it sounds entertaining.
It's very entertaining.
It really does. And I wanted to ask, before we got off Bilderberg and other protests, because I've gone to a lot of March Against Monsanto events. I went to the NATO protests in Chicago. And one thing that I've noticed is anytime that there's a really important event, something that people really should show up for, the communists are always there. And I don't know if it's because they're on par with what's really important or if they're just there as like... to kind of make the people not look like they should be taken serious, because you see communists protesting and it's kind of like, oh, well, they're fucking communists, you know? What do you think that is, and have you noticed that the communists always show up?
Yeah, there were some communists at that Bilderberg protest. I know when it was in Istanbul in 2007, saw footage of that. And they do, yeah, I think there's something to that they show up to discredit it. It's a very marginalized group. They roll out other marginalized people and they take over sometimes, and it's just the nature of the game. You got to stick to your principles and focus what's unimportant, and just you don't have to associate with people. Sometimes there's room for a big tent, though.
Like, what's the most important thing that you want to talk about right now? I think that's what we should focus on. Go ahead, guys.
I don't know. I've been really deep into the food research lately because I feel like what's really going on is important. I mean, politically things are important, but if you don't have your health, then you really can't do much else with those big systems we can't get inside those systems and change those systems. We have to take control of what's going on in our own house first, in our own lives, and take control of our own health. And I've been doing a lot of research on just basically all the chemicals and all the corporatism, because those two things are inextricably linked. I mean, our government is a revolving door for these corporations. I don't even call it the United States of America anymore. I call it the United Corporations of America. And I was just reading research just the other day, and I wrote a short article on it about how glyphosate disrupts the bacteria in your gut. It kills the good bacteria in your gut. And what that basically means is that Monsanto's Roundup, being as ubiquitous as it is, it's sprayed on millions of acres of crops every year in this country. We have GMO everywhere, so they use it even more because it's been modified so that it will be resistant to those chemicals, so they spray even more of them on there, superbugs, superweeds, all that. So you got this stuff everywhere. It's runoff in the soil, it's in the water. People are eating the residues in the food, and it specifically attacks the good bacteria in your gut. What does that mean? What it means is 70% of your immune system is in your gut. That's where you have an immunity. That's where you fight off disease. And if they can kill that, well, then that opens your body up to all kinds of autoimmune disorders, cancer, you name it. And you know all that stuff is skyrocketing off the charts, and I'm pretty sure there's a huge link.
Now, I've noticed when I go to health food stores or whatever, I've found in many instances the eating right, it can literally take your entire paycheck, even if you make a decent amount of money.
No,
well,
Sam,
I mean,
come on.
I
You can
think-
go to farmers markets and whatnot. Melissa, also on the top of your charts is, I mean, one of the things that I've most been following that you've been putting out, Melissa, is Common Core. And a lot of articles about that. Melissa, how many websites are you on? Because you're on, like, the Daily Sheeple, Truthstream Media, and like, I mean...
Activist Post. And, I mean, I've got 3 college degrees. I could probably go get some other job and grovel to some other person, but I'm trying to do this because I'm trying to help wake people up. I'm trying to put information out there that people need to see. And so I believe in this enough that I would put my whole life into this. Both of us do. And that's just how it is. And so
I'll say this around the edges. I'm not a believer in utopia, and I'm not a believer in getting a Rand Paul type to take over an Obama or a Bush type in the presidency. I don't see myself as trying to focus around someone who's going to be the single leader and trying to find the perfect person to push up. I think we all have a role to play, big, large, small, in between, people who have great personalities, people who are difficult to work with, people who you might agree with their principles but maybe don't want to hang out with them in a room. You know, I've seen all you guys do your activist work. Sam, we met a couple years back at Chantilly. Other activists, I met Luke Radowski when I first started working at InfoWars. I met Dan Dykes the first time I went to Bilderberg. And there's a reason that we show up to these events and then we tune into this stuff and we educate ourselves and we get active. All you guys, I keep seeing you around, not just you guys, but the other ones. And the people who keep at it year after year, there's a reason for that. You're moved by something, you have something to say, you have a role to play in this. And we all do. I mean, I've been at this for over 7 years now, and I don't know how to describe just exactly what it is that's pushing me to do this, but I'm sure it has a common thread in why we're all trying to do this.
It gets in your blood. It's like you see things, and the people around you, you look at them, and you do your very best to try to say, hey, you know, GMO, high fructose corn syrup. I have a couple friends, I mean, I talk about this stuff all the time, guys. I have a couple friends that have stopped drinking pop. Other people will drink pop and laugh at me. I did that video, that Rap Closet Monster video, and the one, my friend knows it, the other rapper that's in it with me.
Who narded the Ned knee?
He's got a Pepsi Max bottle sitting in the video shot that I didn't catch till it was done. So now Pepsi Max is in the Closet Monster video. It's like the stuff is everywhere. And you couldn't get away from it if you tried. To tie it into what you were saying, you couldn't get away from it if you tried. Because you try not to warn people, and you just see it everywhere.
It's the problem is that eventually there will be a tipping point. There will be one, because right now we're looking at 1 in 3 women getting cancer and 1 in 2 men. That's the statistic now. That's what it is. They didn't used to have that. That didn't used to be the way. Now everybody knows somebody who has cancer, has fought cancer, has survived cancer, whatever. Cancer is everywhere. I mean, autoimmune disorders are off the charts. People are going to have to start paying attention unless they just think this is how it is and everyone just gets sick and we all just are supposed to die. They're saying our generation right now, you guys, us, we're going to live shorter lives on average than our parents. It'll be the first generation that's happened in a really long time. And people need to figure it out. It's like you can drink soda, you know, fine, drink soda all day long, eat your Big Mac, and eventually, I guess, just accept that you're going to get cancer and die when you're like 55. I mean, that's not normal. That's not the way it's supposed to be. So I just do whatever I can to try and put that in people's face and maybe just even, you know, show it to them in a common sense perspective. I mean, we have it now to where scientists have to tell us everything. If a scientist hasn't told it to you, then it's not true. You don't have any common sense. You have no critical thinking. Don't think for yourself. If a scientist didn't tell you, then it's not real. I mean, I read the thing the other day. We were talking about how the American Academy of Pediatrics was telling parents that eating organic food, having your kids eat organic food, that's not healthier for your kids because, and this is almost a quote, like a paraphrase, because there's not been any long-term scientific studies to show that eating less pesticide is healthier for you. It's like, when did we suddenly become just a raving band of morons that we need a scientist to tell us that eating less pesticide is good for us? When do we go into our kitchen and pull out a bunch of bottles with skull and crossbones on it under our sink and just dump that on our food too? I mean, because a scientist didn't tell me that's a bad thing to do. I don't have a long-term study that says if I don't run out in the street naked and set myself on fire, that's bad for me, so I guess I'll go do it. I mean, it's stupid. How stupid is everybody?
The fish agreed. The fish agreed, Melissa, not to leave that area. And they have this agreement.
It just is like, I want to shake people. I just want to shake people. Like, what are you doing? How can you
Melissa, you're a conspiracy theorist. They're building an ice wall. Smiling stops radiation. Everything's fine.
Smiling fish.
I mean, conspiracy theorists used to just mean there was a theory that a conspiracy happened, which many have. It's on record. It's in history. Go read a book.
You're trying to figure it out.
But now it's like if the media has completely taken that phrase over, and it's like if you even say the phrase, well, it's like, well, that guy's obviously a crazy lunatic, right? But it's because people don't want to have to face reality. Well, reality is about to face you. Because 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women are getting cancer in this country. It's insane. Little kids are getting cancer. For the first time ever, we have kids getting shingles and type 2 diabetes. I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on a whole tangent. But like,
please do.
It's nuts. This is not normal. It's just not normal, and people need to get it.
You think that there's going to be a tipping point, but I don't know if I agree, because I've seen the soft tyranny be put in place. I've seen the way that they do it. I always relate it to streetlight cameras, They started off by saying, we're going to put cameras in at intersections where there's a lot of accidents, and people said, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. That's going to be just fine. And then they said, well, we're going to put cameras in high crime areas to try and keep people from shooting each other. And people go, okay, well, that makes sense. I guess we can do that. And now you go into the inner loop in the city of Chicago, and every single corner has a camera. And yeah, go ahead.
Okay, what I mean by a tipping point is I think it's going to become choosing sides. I don't think that everyone's suddenly going to wake up. I wish that would happen. We all wish that would happen. That's why we do this, right? But I don't think that's going to be the case, but I do think it's going to finally be like there's this group and there's that group. And, we're just going to have to do what we can to try and educate ourselves and make ourselves as healthy as possible and decentralize as much as we possibly can. Because it is going to get to a point where it's so much. It's just going to be so much. It's going to be like, I think it's going to be like Children of Men meets Idiocracy. That's my thoughts on it. But
I do agree with you, and it seems like we're coming to this point where I think you're right. There are kind of two different types of people, and don't get me wrong, having a cheeseburger from Burger King or Wendy's every once in a while, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. If you want to watch some cartoons and some Family Guy every once in a while, that's fine as long as you're reading a book every once in a while too. But we seem to have this gap of people who can understand still that's junk food, that's junk TV, that's an every once in a while thing. And then we have these people who literally just fill their lives up on these things. They're consumed with junk food, junk entertainment, junk products. They care more about what the next phone is going to be than who's going to get elected in their local elections. And it really seems like you try and bring these things up to people, and they will literally roll their eyes at you for caring and say some dumb thing like, oh, well, what am I going to do?
Those are going to be the people that are going to be complaining when the Wi-Fi signal's not coming through good in the FEMA camp.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but those are going to be the people standing around in the middle like, I want to get on face. It's like you're in a camp. Although I think people are pretty much in a camp now. I mean, if you see how the food is so centralized. Back in the days of the Great Depression, many people were dependent on themselves. They grew their own food. A lot of people had livestock and everything else, and they took care of their families, or they had like neighboring co-ops that did stuff. I mean, there was a lot more independence. Now we got like 2 to 4% of the people in this country. The rest of the whole 96 to 98% are dependent on that 2 to 4%
well, and why did it happen?
For their
because
food.
They let people go along with the idea that it's in the name of efficiency, in the name of economy. We could do this faster, better, cheaper, so trust them. Trust them to run your lives politically, in food, and commerce. And look what they've done when you've trusted them. If you dare look into how things are done in Washington, it's just as disgusting as how they make a hot dog, or how they make the rest of your food, for that matter. And why? I mean, yeah, it's a lot of effort to make your own food. We're not doing it right now. I would love to be. but we've taken some baby steps, and when you make your own stuff, when you take back any of your own power, it is so empowering.
That's the freedom. I mean, that really is the freedom, because it's like with all the food, you don't know what's in this food. And once you start looking into that, you can't unsee it. It's like a train wreck that never goes away. You cannot unsee it.
They literally can't run a charity without having disgusting criminal-level corruption.
It's disgusting. The stuff that's in our food, we have like 80,000 chemicals in commerce. All of these chemicals are in commerce, and our food, I mean, what people don't realize, these CAFO feedlots, they're raising the food in concentration camps, and they're filling it up with all kinds of antibiotics and chemicals.
They can't grow spinach without dumping cow feces on it because they don't know what else to do with it. It's filled with antibiotics and pharmaceuticals.
So they spray fluoride on the food. They spray all of these chemicals on the food. I mean, if you write like one food producer and say, how many chemicals do you put on your conventional carrots, they're going to send you a list of 33 chemicals. Why? Because that's what the FDA approved. Oh, great. So that means it takes 33 chemicals just to grow some freaking carrots, and then people are eating that.
And you're going to need a friend with a chemistry degree to understand what that stuff is.
To understand what's in your food. I'm going off, but when you eat one plate of food, just to get that plate of food in this country, people don't have any idea how many chemicals, antibiotics, and disgusting things were put into the food, on the food, before it ever reaches your table, and you're eating all that stuff. Not to mention the trauma these animals go through. Then you have to eat the trauma, too. It is disgusting.
But, see, we've traded it all for this economy of they can do it cheaper and more efficient, but they've taken a tiny slice of the big picture of economy, and they said, let's focus on the money and utility aspect. Let's ignore all the humanity.
We won't even look at health study. What's a health study?
Let's ignore the health when we've got to look at things holistically and say, is it a good trade-off to ignore all other factors and only focus on the economic dollar efficiency? This world would be so much better if our GDP was lower, but we were living in empowered lives where we knew what we were eating and what was growing in our backyard and stuff, and we could make next to nothing in money. It wouldn't matter. We've taken one step. We've taken 1,000 steps to educate ourselves on what's really going on in the political system, the food supply, you name it. We've taken about 5 steps in starting to raise our own food. We started kombucha a week and a half ago, which I was intimidated to do for
I saw
years.
that. What is that? What is that? I've seen that. Exactly what is
kombucha has this amazing historical reputation as a healing. It's a tea that's based on a yeast and bacteria culture.
Which sounds really yummy when you say it that way.
A little like a mushroom, but the yeast and the bacteria have this symbiotic relationship that produce all these superfood level nutritional benefits. And once you get this bacteria, it works with the probiotics. It builds up the probiotics in your body. It flushes out all the toxins and chemicals that are bad for you. It helps you balance your blood supply.
I tell everyone that'll listen, my dad he got diagnosed with diabetes. And granted, he was a big guy. He got diagnosed with diabetes in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then he went to a diabetic diet according to what the scientists and the FDA that everybody laughed at Ron Paul for wanting to get rid of. He listened to what they did. He drank his Walmart generic version of Rite Aid every day. He ate his Walmart food. I used to say he worshipped at the shrine of Walmart. I saw him drunk maybe 5 times in my 39 years of life that he was with me. Ever. I mean, it never happened. Died of gallbladder liver cancer. Now, Aaron, Melissa, he ate what you were supposed to eat when you're a diabetic. This is what's going to help. He died of a disease that an alcoholic normally gets, and the man never drank.
Yeah, I've been trying to take small steps. Have you guys ever heard of using food-grade hydrogen peroxide mixed with water? You fill up a glass and you put 3 drops of pure food-grade hydrogen peroxide in it, which this is stuff that if you put a drop on your finger, it'll turn white in a matter of seconds. It'll burn you. So you just put like 3 drops in, you mix that up, and then you can take a more diluted form of it and you spray it kind of like an inhaler, and then you can drink it, swish it around. It's supposed to help with your lungs and how much oxygen they take in. Just drinking it, it improves the oxygen level within your blood, whitens your teeth, all this great stuff. I've been trying to do that.
And it's something that Kyle actually wrote an article about and posted on the mediaspeaks.com. What's the most exciting thing to you guys as a couple doing what you're doing now at Truthstream Media? And I mean, I just think it would be exciting, the two of you, when one of you discovers something new and you talk about it. And
that is really exciting.
and can you talk?
It happens all the time.
Melissa, how do you feel about when you discover something new, or Aaron does, and then the two of you are talking about it, and what's that like?
I feel like in doing that, we're sitting around putting together the world's biggest jigsaw puzzle. That's how I feel. And I finally found where a piece goes. And I'm like, here it is. This is the thing that we didn't think about.
I feel like it's an "oh, those bastards are at it again" moment.
Yeah, that too. Actually,
and Aaron sort of has that other part of the puzzle, like, like you bring something to him, and he's like, I know how this sort of connects. And is that what you're saying?
It is kind of like that, yeah. I mean, right now, what we've been doing, what we're trying to do, is get together enough background research to actually kickstart a documentary. I mean, that's the thing that we're really wanting to do right now.
On Kickstarter?
It's time for that. So we finally got to the point where I think that's probably the next thing we're going to do, and it's based on what you guys are saying. It's based on just sitting here every day doing research and finding out one more piece.
Wait, why wasn't the Nicolas Cage Superman movie made? Don't you think that would be a better Kickstarter? Kickstarter, or are you guys really putting together a Kickstarter that is really going to ignite people and make D-Lake want to donate?
Our audience isn't just. We're not going to preach to the choir on this one. We actually are going to try and get people to pay attention who, like you said earlier, may be stuck in a trance and may not be paying attention.
You know what I was thinking, honestly, was I want us to make our whole movie, and we're going to try to show the big picture of how things intersect, and it's this repeating cycle. But I'm tempted, maybe not on this documentary, to straight up encourage people that go watch our movie, but let's say you thought it got whatever, after an hour in, or really you liked it, but the most important part was that 5 or 10 minutes. Take that part and go expand on that and make it your film. Just steal it and be like, everyone needs to know about this sub issue.
Like
this
a seed.
What about solutions? What about solutions, Aaron? Do you intend to focus in on any type of solutions for people?
We're going to get some people. We're going to get some interviews. We got some interviews that we're going to get, and we're definitely going to talk about solutions, because that's the problem. We don't have solutions. People don't give you solutions.
Yeah, they take the industrial waste from the phosphate
fertilizer company, and they put it in the water. But you know what? I mean, the EPA, this is what people don't do. They're like, I'm going to spend the afternoon watching a football game instead of going and reading what's in my water. If you go check out the EPA's website, for example, there's all kinds of crap in our water. There's atrazine in 94% of the municipal water in this country has atrazine in it, which is an herbicide. Let's
talk to the yoga mat. No.
That's an herbicide that has been shown to turn frogs into hermaphrodites at low doses.
That's Syngenta's #1 herbicide.
Yay, I want to drink it.
Monsanto's the biggest, and then there's the other top 6, Bayer Crop Science, and so forth and so on.
Dow.
And that's Syngenta's big one. They were in a lawsuit. They had to settle because they had atrazine in 2,000 water districts, at least 52 million people's water. They paid off a chunk of, $10 or $100 million that admitted no harm or whatever. It's crazy what goes on in this world. I think there's a fever that we had to break out of. They tried it, obviously, with the 9/11 scaremongering, and for a while everyone was on edge. But after a few years, I think a lot of people have settled down from that, even people who are not inclined to look into this information, not inclined to a 9/11 conspiracy explanation, maybe didn't even give a shit about the Iraq War. A lot of those people have broken out of that fever and realized, that was kind of a crazy era for this world. And if we break out of other fevers that this society is going through, we might realize we don't need to send all our money and power into Washington. And individual holdouts will help, but we have to. It's a cultural war. We have to reinvest the culture locally.
What even happens once the EPA settles with Syngenta and Syngenta pays the EPA a whole bunch of money? Do you think that goes back to the people who were poisoned? Oh no, that doesn't go back to them. That goes to the EPA. What do they do with it? I don't know. Do you?
Well, Aaron, it's just so incredible. You've been doing this for so long. I mean,
all of these things I think are really important. Knowing how to put the videos together, knowing how to do it properly, because you see a lot of people online on YouTube who they have good information and they know what they're talking about, but they don't even know how to operate a basic camera. And I think that's awesome. But you were talking about with wanting to make this documentary and try and get, not just preaching to the choir. I agree with you. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's nice to pander to people who already agree with you now and then. But how do you reach out and really draw more people in? How do you get them to understand that you're not just full of shit and that what you're saying comes from research? It comes from investigation. How do you get more people on board?
Good question.
It's a really good question. I've started reading more scientific studies, for instance, on the things with the food. And it's in there. You could tell a lot of studies are kind of actually superficial and benefit industry, but it's all full of this jargon. And it's behind this paywall, right? It's supposed to be the science and information that moves our whole society. Everybody's supposed to benefit from it, but you can't even read it because you got to pay $40 an article or $120 an article just to even read their technical jargon, as if anyone's going to bother. Then you have to dumb it down for yourself to understand, or basically work up to the level of a degree holder in science. It's weird, right?
I think that they're trying to hold information still. I think they're trying to do it the old way of, the church used to control information, right? The Vatican, you had to go through them, become a monk, become a priest, and then they would educate you. Otherwise, you had no chance of learning how to read or getting this information. In the same way, they've been trying to do that with universities, right? And that's why you see the price of going to a university goes up and up and up and up and up, and the amount of information you get out of it is going down and down and down and down. While at the same time, they're trying to fight people who want to give that information out for free. There's been multiple companies who have tried to open up online free universities. They will not give them accreditation. They will not allow anybody else into their game because they're trying to control it still. But we have the internet now. Everybody has high speed. Everybody's got a tablet and a laptop and a cell phone. We have all the information of the world at our fingertips. So do you think that
that's what we have to do. We have to be Prometheus, and we have to go steal that fire as quick as we can and get it while the internet's still up there. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Because it's absurd the way that information is controlled, but they know that information's power. They know it's empowering. And all those things all the problems you raised about growing your own food and the learning curve of making sure you're not going to make yourself sick, that stuff's important. But if we stay on the system, we're all going to get sick and die, or metaphorically get sick and die, or we're going to wither away, or our minds will. And we've got to go steal that fire back along the lines of the Prometheus myth and all the other myths, because as if God would create the whole earth and universe and then just want to talk to some guy sitting in a palace or locked in a closet.
Aaron, do you want your glasses to have Google Glass, and do you want to live forever, and do you want to merge with a transhumanist society, Aaron Dykes?
I do not want to be a transhumanist. I just want to make my life count right now. Of course, I'm interested in improvements, but I'm not interested in losing...
You don't want to put your brain in a Ray Kurzweil robot?
You guys remember Gulliver's Travels, where the people with immortality had all gone blind, and they were trying to hang out by that fountain of youth, and they couldn't even see outside of the fountain?
Right.
That's the perfect metaphor for transhumanism, for trusting ourselves just to a niche of PhD-level academics or these Washington politicians. It's the same metaphor. When you go into the palace, you find it's all empty and corrupt, and that it's inside of us already. We just have to reconnect with it.
I'm pretty sure Kurzweil said we were supposed to all be not procreating anymore because we were all going to be having sex with robots by now.
Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think, Kyle?
I'm torn on this issue of transhumanism, because don't get me wrong, what Ray Kurzweil wants and what some of these globalist transhumanists want is very scary and weird, but at the same time, I think the technology is really cool. I don't think the problem is with Google Glass. I think the problem is with how they're going to try and use it against us.
That's what they're going to do with it.
Exactly, and we need everybody has a cell phone in their hand, which, like I said, everybody has the power of all information ever known by all human beings throughout history.
And what are they doing with it? They're putting a picture of their cat on Twitter.
Yeah, and they're playing Angry Birds. And so how do we fix that, and how do we get people to use these tools properly, and how do we get the people who create them not to use them for marketing purposes and spying on us so that, I watch a video from Truthstream Media and I get a Glenn Beck video for my next ad.
Yeah, I know. It's not going to happen because, unfortunately, the people that are in control of all of this tech are the same people that are advocating that the world is overpopulated. So these are not people that want the world to continue to have more people. They don't want you to have the technology.
It's foundation funded.
It's a club. It's a club. It's like George Carlin said, you're not in it. We're not in it. We're plebs. We're not in the club. These people.
And you can take the entire population and fit them in Texas. I'm sure you've heard.
Yeah. Science is owned. Science is not. Science used to be people in their basement in their free time figuring things out. That's not science anymore. Science is now whoever pays your bills. And who's paying the bills? The American government? Bill Gates? Do we want to know what Bill Gates is steering all the science towards? I don't think we do. I mean, right? I'm disgusted. I'm totally disgusted by Common Core is.
No, that's what you need, Melissa. You need to take 120 steps to figure out
Common Core.
To figure out a division problem in mathematics.
Let me tell you, exactly.
No, you have to draw it out.
Let me tell you how common Common Core is. Common Core is so common that it was written by 5 people. And they're all linked to Bill Gates. Bill Gates is taking his bajillions of dollars, okay, and he's going completely around the democratic process and influencing directly what's being taught to every kid that's in all of these Common Core states. And then all the time you turn on the news and you're like, oh, wow, they put out a new homework assignment from Common Core. And people who grew up in Poland are like, that's exactly what I would have learned back in the days when they were, keeping everybody. It's horrifying. It's horrifying what's going on. And, I mean, I saw one just the other day. Kimberly Paxton wrote about it, Sheeple, where they were teaching middle schoolers about sex education, and they're like, holding hands is the same as anal sex. It's like, why are you teaching a 13-year-old about any of this?
I saw that, and that's kind of like DARE, and I've talked to a ton of people, like the DARE program in school. I forget what it stands for, but it's the anti-drug program, where they bring you into a classroom in 4th and 5th grade, and they say, don't do drugs. Here's every drug, what it does, and how to use it.
Let me tell you about the DARE program. My master's degree is actually in criminology. The DARE program for 20 years did not change. For 20 years. They didn't even update it till like 2003. And they have had studies done year after year on the DARE program to show that it actually causes kids to do drugs. So it's actually educating children who would not have otherwise done that to go out and do drugs. It is. They've got proof of that. But they just keep funding it to the tune of millions of dollars every year. Why do you think that is? I think part of it has to do with the fact that we have a huge criminal justice complex in this country, a huge prison industrial complex in this country. That's jobs. I mean, we put more people per capita in prison in this country than any other country in the world. And a lot of those people are in there for nonviolent crimes, and a lot of it is actually marijuana. But anyway.
We showed it in an episode once. I have a wristwatch that just looks like a normal watch. It's got a tiny little hidden HD camera in it, and I've told cops, if I get pulled over, I do record it the same way that you record off the dash cam for both of our safety. And I've had guys say to me, I will arrest you if I knew that was happening. You can't arrest me. It's not against the law.
But as you know, there's been high-profile Supreme Court cases upholding that it's legal to do that, and they misused wiretapping laws from the 70s when people had tape recorders in the back room where they keep the liquor or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, what's happened in this country is they passed the Patriot Act and they've convoluted what our Constitution is to the point that people can't keep up with all these, rulings and all these courts changing things and tweaking things and turning things around to the point where our own police officers, a lot of them, don't know how to interpret what people's rights are anymore. And it's pretty freaking basic. It's called, here's the Constitution, these are the rights. Figure it out. I mean, it shouldn't be, it's those words, that's the right, but it's not. They've totally convoluted it, and they've changed what things mean now to the point that it's not even black.
Yeah, well, I've got a family member who works in the industrial complex we're talking about. He got a criminal justice degree, and he was told in class by his teacher, probably more in an offhand remark than in the official course material, that the Constitution doesn't really apply much anymore.
Isn't that nice?
He was told that. He told me that. So
Yeah,
it doesn't really apply much anymore. Why don't you become a cop, though?
And think about this. We've been talking about Common Core. They're talking about not teaching cursive writing anymore. They're going to do away with it because we don't need it, right? We have computers. Well, guess what? All of our founding documents for this country were written in cursive.
Look at all this cursive. I was like, what is that? Mr. George, like, I'm trying to read it. Like,
It's hard to read, right?
I learned cursive, and it's still hard to read.
Who do you think's going to still know how to read it and who's not going to read it? It's like they're separating people out class-wise by not teaching cursive in public schools.
Well, let me just paraphrase and summarize that document for you. It's do what you're told.
It's do what you're told.
Well, let me just paraphrase and summarize that document for you. It's do what you're told.
It's do what you're told.
I want to go back to this question of science and journalism and you know getting important degrees in school. Because I get confronted with this all the time, friends and family and associates and, you know, acquaintances, whatever, about science versus this, science versus religion, or science versus your right to not take vaccines.
So his family
and
goes
so
on.
forth, right? If science is so great, how come the general population hasn't heard about Tesla's discoveries or doesn't know that
if science is so great, how come all of the birth rates are going down and people are dying all over the place and cancer is like going off the charts and everyone's sick all over the place?
Or that Rudolph
science is saving us? Oh, thank you, science. This is great. I love it. It's wonderful.
Rudolph Diesel's name is known for diesel fuel and not for the cars he invented, some of which run off of hemp or other vegetable oils. People don't know about Henry Ford's designs for a hemp car made out of hemp that's stronger than the plastics and metal alloys that they actually use. You know, there's all kinds of things that we never heard about that have been discovered and proven in science.
We've got a plastic garbage island the size of the country floating out in the North Pacific Gyre right now. But supposedly if they could have made plastic bottles out of hemp, it would have been biodegradable. It would have been fine. But no, now we have a giant plastic floating island, and we've got all the radiation out there. I told Aaron we should write a screenplay about all the radiation from Fukushima meeting up with the plastic island and making a Godzilla-like creature that crawls out of the ocean and attacks mankind. It would go on sci-fi.
But see, this is the point I'm trying to make. The whole reason is they won't ask the right question. They won't ask the right questions. Should they make plastic bottles out of petroleum? Well, it's a foregone conclusion because the Rockefellers and the oil monopoly control the entire societal structure. So, of course, it's understood.
So petroleum byproducts are going to be in everything you eat and put on your body.
Is this politician a
scumbag? Your clothing.
Is this politician a scumbag? Well, if you're an average journalist who spent more time working on his haircut and asking a smooth and polished question with a reputable voice, then it's a foregone conclusion that he's respectable, that he has such and such degrees, and that he's trying his best for the country. And by the way, you're probably going to have drinks with him afterwards, and maybe even married to his cousin or daughter or something.
Yeah,
they won't ask the right questions.
Don't go against the flow.
Aaron, you sound like a complete extremist, and I believe that petroleum products fuel our economy. I've talked to top economists, and they agree with me.
All those byproducts have to go somewhere, right?
You can spend, what, 12 years or whatever it is becoming a medical doctor, but if you go against the orthodoxy,
where you learn half an hour of actual natural medicine or anything about nutrition.
Yeah, they're actually not allowed to tell you things like I was reading, again, in Illinois, we just passed legal medical marijuana, and I was reading into some of the laws surrounding it. Yeah, very exciting time for us. Yeah, but I was reading some of the laws that surround the medical aspect of this, and all right, so you go to a doctor for an issue, whether it be glaucoma, back pain, cancer, whatever it is, and they're allowed to recommend that you may benefit from using medical marijuana. That is all they're allowed to do. They can't tell you how to use it. They can't tell you how much. They can't recommend where to get it. All they can do is write on a piece of paper, hand it to you, and run away before they get sued by the government.
Which is really funny considering the government owns the patent on cannabinoids as neuroprotectants and antioxidants. So there you go. They own the patent on it. You can go look it up.
But they do know you have to refill your prescription bottle twice a month.
He's like, you can go to school for 12 years and be a medical doctor. You can go to school for 12 years and not be able to read a shampoo bottle of the ingredients of crap you're putting on your head just to wash your hair in the morning.
I've been pushing this forever. What do you two think the final end game on this would be if it was to happen? I've been saying forever the solution to our problems is mass nonviolent disobedience. By that I mean I'm just going to pick one issue. Let's say it's driving. What if you got half of a state or a third of a state to refuse to renew your license, to pay any traffic violation.
They'd have to stop doing it. They would have to stop doing it. It's just like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please do. I said they could only arrest so many people.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's kind of like, was it Washington where everybody refused to go through TSA? I think it was in Seattle, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. It was up somewhere in the northwest, but everybody decided they just,
Yeah,
Yay!
that's right.
They
And
decided they weren't
shut
going to
it-
go through TSA, and they had to stop because they were holding up the whole thing, and stuff
took
had to
the day
continue
off.
moving. So I mean, if people just said, no, I'm not going to comply with this, I'm not going to do it. The problem, though, is, and he's even interviewed high-level people that have talked about the fact that they are actually using brainwashing techniques in the television. I mean, they really literally are. It sounds crazy. I might as well go put my tinfoil hat on, but they really literally are doing subliminal type things and other things, high-level technologies in the television set, and people really are dream walking through life. I mean, there's a reason our government spent billions of dollars, and other governments billions of dollars, to move everybody over to digital television. There's a reason for that, and it's not because they give a crap about whether or not your picture is good. Okay, they're not sitting around going, well, I really hope everyone watches the game in HD. I really care about that, so let's have the government spend $8 billion subsidizing it. No, that's not why. There's reasons for that, and if you start going and looking into that, that'll keep you up at night.
Now that we don't use analog RF signals or whatever they are for TV, right? So if we're not using those anymore, then the FCC doesn't have any domain over them, I would assume. I want to take back analog transmission signals for truther, libertarian, patriot movement
But it's
people.
the same channel. It's just a digital
so
signal.
You can't have it.
Can they do that? Isn't it the same channel, only digital instead of analog? It's the same channel.
Here's what I've read. Back in the first Iraq War, the Pentagon was testing out different kinds of psych warfare on the Iraqis, and they tested out something called silent sound technology that basically, it deserves a worse sound effect than that, actually. Do you have a worse one?
That's about all I got.
Okay, well, just mix them all together because that's about how it was. And essentially what it did was it would send out silent messages underneath regular radio waves that would tell these people the most horrible things, and they could hear it inside of their heads. And this did not get a lot of press, but there are still some archived documents out there, and I've written about this before too, where I think it was like 150,000 Iraqis surrendered, and they walked out and just put their guns down, no fighting whatsoever, had to take police to do it, and they just walked up and kissed the boots of our troops and were like, please make it stop. It was basically like, make it stop. And the thing that has been explained to me, Joe Joseph of Freedom Link actually explained this to me, is that on our old television signals, if they were putting something through the television, there would be like a fuzz, like a real quick fuzz, and you'd be able to tell other signals were being sent through. Because it's digital now, multiple different signals can be sent through it. You can't see that. There's no perception of that.
Did you guys see Videodrome? The movie Videodrome?
It's like Videodrome.
Deborah Harry.
What's the movie called?
That movie is very disturbing,
Videodrome.
but if you actually watch it, put your alternative media hat on and watch it from a critical analysis viewpoint, you will see so much symbolism and so many things just being told in that movie. It's horrifying, actually.
Critics tried to destroy that movie because it was way too accurate.
Yeah, and David Cronenberg's one of those master directors that you wonder who exactly led him towards his knowledge path, because he's like Kubrick or something, where he seems to know a little bit too much. And Videodrome, coming out in 1983 or whatever it was totally on the cutting edge of how CIA-type people are using the new technologies for mass societal control. And it's a creepy movie, and it shows how you can get caught up in the technology. And we've all had our own experiences with that, good, bad, and in the middle, as we've lived through technology for over a generation now. But it's a tool of mass control. There's no other way to put it. Yeah, go watch that movie Videodrome, but be careful, though. Don't creep yourself out too much.
Don't watch it in the dark at night.
Don't watch it in the dark, and make sure when you're done, you can go take a walk in the sunlight or something. It points out what happens when you watch movie and technology and these games, of how you get sucked into it. The food system just disgusts me. I wish that I was at the point of raising my own food and knowing how to do that healthily.
He asked me if we wanted to be Amish the other day. That's to the point he's at. Seriously.
You have a tractor, Aaron? Do you have a tractor?
Here, I have
He
a
would
question.
love a tractor.
I thought I saw a picture of Aaron driving a tractor.
I've driven a
I
tractor
would love a
before.
picture of Aaron driving a tractor.
I'm a city boy, but I've been out in the country a little bit. I've got a little bit of family that does that stuff, and I think it has a lot of dignity to it. I'm open to that.
So I have a question about being Amish. This is something I was thinking about the other day while I was at work listening to all my podcasts. And all right, so Amish are against electricity, right? They don't like electricity. They want to live a simpler life, all that.
Friends of Amish.
You want to be...
Amish are really, really nice. I spent an entire day on a train that was stuck frozen on the tracks hanging out with an Amish kid and a Hungarian foreign exchange student. We had a great time. But what if something else was to come along like that wasn't electricity? Like some I don't know what it would be, but something better than electricity that wasn't electricity. Would Amish be cool with it? Like, or if I could build a super mechanized computer that was just a ton of like gears and cogs inside, but you could play Angry Birds on it, would they be cool with that?
I think it's a machina deus kind of issue, who's behind the machine. Webster Tarpley loves to debate if you ever have the chance to meet him. He will just debate with you on any topic if you're spending 5 minutes or an hour with him. And so I've had the chance to meet him a number of times, and he's a great guy, and he's so great on a lot of these issues, but he is not into that kind of libertarian, decentralized, live for yourself kind of thing. And philosophically, I'm there, even when I can't live through it. But he'll say to me, and other people who debate, what do you want to be, Robinson Crusoe? I wish I could do that accent. He has such a funny accent. What are you going to be, Robinson Crusoe's?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Hey, can I tell you guys something real quick about Webster Tarpley here? And 2 weeks ago, he put out the Glenn Greenwald designates Tarpley as world leader of opposition to Snowden Limited Hangout PSYOP. I covered it. I put out a report. He's obviously watching, listening to D-Lake for Prez. Now he's hashtag Tarpley for Fedhead. I'm in line with Jesse Ventura and Howard Stern tickets, and I'm too libertarian, and I'm probably in over my head, and a comedian that's not funny.
Oh, he's been basically attacking you?
What did? Yeah,
not directly, indirectly. I mean, I appreciate that. D-Lake for Prez, and now he's Tarpley for Fedhead. That's pretty cool. Why don't we pick up right there? I mean, what's this? The age where kids don't look up and barely go outside.
Hey, that's right on par with our technology thing. So we were at the park, and this is a real photo we got. I don't know if you guys can click on it. This photo right here is a real photo.
This is from 2014 with these headbands?
Teenage kid.
Yes, because we live in Austin.
That's what they do in Austin.
It is very trendy here. Actually, the guy with the pink headband had a shirt on that said "Obey."
You guys put out this meme yesterday? I saw this on Facebook yesterday. I was like, oh, this is
all
awesome.
over.
That's a picture Aaron took.
That's my first meme.
Aaron, good meme.
I saw that.
I'm teaching Aaron about memes. I've been in.
Scroll down though. There's a book called One. Scroll down. There's a book cover called One Digital Day, put out by one or other of these. I think it was an IBM computer scientist, with almost the exact kind of thing of a kid sitting on a swing, face down, with a neck cramp.
Wasn't that from like the early 90s or late 80s?
Yeah,
that's the picture that I saw, and I saw that from somebody who wasn't you guys. So that obviously spread around enough to come full circle.
Oh, okay. Because that's it from a video we took at a thrift store. We saw that Digital Day book.
We talk about people becoming zombies and eating, crap food. What do you guys do for fun? What do you do for entertainment when you're not running the website?
What do we do? I've been learning guitar lately. I've actually been. He got me an acoustic guitar from a pawn shop, and I wrote my first song last week. So I'm really excited about that.
I like
I'm gonna send you tracks now and make you play guitar on a passing time song.
Okay.
It's gonna happen now.
So I eventually my old channel I'm gonna start putting up songs, and I guess I'll probably lose all of my subscribers from my old channel, but that's okay. And I don't know. We just like to go take pictures of stuff, and we hang out. I mean, we spend a lot of time though reading about this stuff, and it almost becomes like it's a blur between what you do professionally and what you do personally, because to us it's all personal. So
I'm a dreamer too, though, because that point about Webster Tarpley and Robinson Crusoe, maybe it's just a dream, but I have a dream that we could live a little bit like Robinson Crusoe, but in a 21st, maybe 22nd century way. What if we had solar and water filters and the best of the old world with the old wives' tales and adages about natural
medicine
combined with new technologies that can be off the grid and just independently run, if not by an individual, maybe a co-op of people, maybe a small community of people. Exactly.
Nice.
Good joke.
I think I just heard cricket.
No, I can tell you what I was waiting for more. I've been waiting to tell you two this since you said you'd be on the show. I have a great idea for Truthstream Media. Whenever you guys cover Fukushima, you're going to have to make sure Melissa does it, because while the tsunami did cause some dikes to break, it's the melting down that we're worried about.
Oh, no.
Whoa.
How long did you prepare that joke? No.
Days.
He was up all night.
Thank you very much for coming on. You guys are Truthstream Media everywhere on the internet. Type it in wherever you want except for Twitter, Truthstream News. I got that right?
Yeah.
Where the media speaks, and that's it. Any last words from you guys before we end the broadcast?
Let's all work on trying to ask the right question. Maybe we can make some good things happen.
Yeah, make a difference.